Must have been a hard watch for you, Harriet, the past 24 hours.
Heartbreaking.
This was a vote, not just for Farage and Polanski, but it was a vote against Labour and the Tories.
People are entitled to have a government that they can trust and that they can have confidence in. And it kind of dismays me to have a situation where in this country they don't feel that.
Hello and welcome to Electoral Dysfunction with me, Beth Rigby.
Me, Ruth Davidson.
And me, Harriet Harman.
Now, we are recording this on Friday night. It's a bit of a later episode than usual for us because it has been one hell of a day, and what a long, consequential day this one has been. We finally had most of the results of these elections that we have been going on about for the past 6 months. And I sort of feel I've been in this gestation period, and it's all come out today. Is that too much?
I think if we start stressing the metaphor and start talking about afterbirth, we could be in trouble, Beth. But I mean,
it's been bloody, hasn't it? It's been bloody.
Well, yeah, there's a bit of blood in the carpet, that's for sure. But and may well be more to come in terms of some of the leaders and some of the parties across different parts of the country. But yeah, it's certainly been seismic, and it feels like it's been a long time coming, this election, doesn't it?
It really does. It's been, I would say, both Nigel Farage and Zach Polanski, the Reform and Green leaders respectively, called this a historic set of elections. And I actually think in this instance, they genuinely are historic. And on the matter of Nigel Farage and Zach Polanski, the Reform and Green leaders, I'm sorry to say, ladies, you red and blue parties, it's no longer about you, is it? Labour and Conservatives, you're like, who?
Yeah, we're getting dumped, Harriet. Beth's going to kick us out. She's going to get Zach and her mates Zach and Nige round and do electoral dysfunction with them. But I think we do need to talk about the turquoise surge, as some people are calling it, from Reform, and also this kind of rainbow coalition of parties. And yes, whether this is the end of red and blue party politics or whether this is a midterm kicking for the two main parties of government for the last 2 while. There's lots of colour analogies we can squeeze in, I'm sure. But don't worry, we will explain what everything means. But it would be good to get onto the future. Like, what do these results, not just what they were, because people can tune into the news and see that, but what do they mean? What does it mean about the future of the politics of the UK? What does it mean for the government and how they're supposed to, the UK government, how it's supposed to lead? What does it mean when you've got a room with a prime minister that's committed to the United Kingdom, and you've got most likely first ministers of Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland, all of whom are nationalists that want to see the end of the United Kingdom? Politics can be difficult and tetchy at the best of times, but we have no idea what's coming next. And also, and I know we've banged on about this before, but it's not just us that's talking about it now. This is out in the open amongst Labour MPs. What does it mean for the Prime Minister's future?
And with Labour failing to win in Scotland, being more or less wiped out in Wales and suffering very bad defeats both to Reform and the Greens across England, it's been a heartbreaking night for Labour. And I think everybody recognises that it can't just be business as usual after this. Yes, it's changed the local government, and it's changed the situation in Scotland and in Wales. So it hasn't changed the national government, but it will have a major impact on the national government because everybody will recognise the disappointment and dismay that was reflected in those results and realise that lessons have to be learned and there has to be a response to that.
Must have been a hard watch for you, Harriet, the past 24 hours.
Heartbreaking. And I think you've got to recognise what a major disappointment it is. For example, in Wales, Wales holds a very special place in every Labour person's heart because of its role in history, Welsh Labour's role in history. Although, I do remember in 2009, Labour didn't win the popular vote. The Conservatives won the popular vote in 2009. But, leaving that aside, it's really disappointing. And there were so many hopes in Scotland that actually after the very disappointing outcome of the SNP in terms of running schools and hospitals and the economy and everything, and having been in power for so long and had so many scandals in their leaders, that it would be time for a fresh start with Anna Sawar as Labour's first minister in Holyrood. So disappointing that hasn't happened, and Labour has really been knocked right back, and a feeling that this was not really to do with anything that was going on in Scotland, but it was a result of people's dismay and protest against the government in Westminster.
There really is a lot going on. Let's whip through some of the big things that have happened in these May elections, because there is a fair bit of it. My head is pretty scrambled, I'm not going to lie. It's a mega picture of change in politics. So let me run through it. Number one, the Labour bloodbath. As you've both been saying, they've lost Wales for the first time ever. It's been held by Labour ever since devolution, the Senedd. It's gone. And also the First Minister, Eluned Morgan, has lost her seat. And I can tell you, when those results came in, she looked like she was fighting back the tears. It was absolutely devastating for her. Labour also on track to come in third in Scotland. They've lost around half of the council seats they were defending in England. They've lost control of Brent in London, not a council seat at risk, as well as Birmingham, Southwark, Enfield, Hackney. Starmer is insisting he will not walk away. And to quote him repeatedly, this is what he said when I questioned him early morning in Ealing. He said, "I'm not walking away. I'm not going to plunge the country into chaos." So that's the Labour bloodbath. Then the Reform surge. They've declared themselves the clear winners. They've made gains across the country in the Redwall Heartlands, Hartlepool, Wigan, Tameside, St Helens. They've gained control of 8 councils, including Gateshead, Sunderland, Thurrock, Essex, Suffolk. I mean, that's a pretty big patchwork across the country. They've got now more than 1,000 councillors across England. They came second in Wales, where they now will be really, I guess, the official opposition. And then the Greens, they won 2 mayoralties, the first time ever for the Green Party, Hackney and Lewisham mayoralty gains. They won more than 200 seats across England. They gained a handful of councils, including Hackney, Norwich and Waltham Forest. The Tories taking a bit of a hammering. They lost in their Essex heartland. I'm actually in Essex because I came here for a rally for Nigel Farage's reform. Nigel Farage came to Essex. So delighted was he to take this true blue part of the world from the Tories. And this is where Kemi Badenoch is an MP. She's an MP from the county of Essex. They've lost around 500 councillors across England. A few positives. They regained Westminster Council. They've made gains in Wandsworth to take it from Labour control to no overall control. And the Lib Dems, they've had a pretty good day too, holding on to Richmond in a clean sweep. Gains in Portsmouth, Stockport. No real gains where Progressive Vote is collapsing against Labour, though. The SNP, at the time of the recording, they're on track to be the largest party in Scotland. They'll probably hold on to the First Minister role. That will be the 5th successive term that the SNP, who apparently have been very unpopular in Scotland, Ruth, you can tell us all about it, hold on to Holyrood. So bloody take that in. I mean, you wouldn't have imagined that maybe 2 years back. And Plaid Cymru is the biggest party in Wales. So there you go.
All right, take a breath, Beth. I mean, I know it rhymes
lot.
and everything, but you know, deep breathing, circular breathing. That was a big old rundown there.
It's been a lot, Ruth. It's been a lot for a political editor. I can tell you that's a lot of news.
And that is a lot of news. There is no scarcity of news out there. But can I just say, I know that this will probably have you like punching the screen because we're quite a long way away from each other. But are you not just sad that we didn't do this at like 3 a.m. and we weren't doing it through the night like usual? Do you not think there's romance that's lost about all of this when you get a good night's sleep and then you get up and start the day? Like I miss an overnight count. I miss going on the television at like 5 a.m. and talking gibberish because you haven't slept in like 27 hours. Do you know?
No, I feel like I've put in the hours today, Ruth. I think I've put in a shift, babes.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, we're going to give you a break for a second because we've actually got a question from one of our listeners. This is Sophie, who wants to put us all on the spot.
Hi, ladies. My question is, do these local elections still reflect government performance, or have they become a mix of national protests, local issues and tactical voting, especially as frustration with Labour grows in areas like the North East?
I think that's a really good question from Sophie. And I would say, and I'm not ducking the answer on this, I'd say all of those are reasons there. And I feel so dismayed about the outcome of these elections because I do think that they reflect, and people were saying it on the doorstep, they feel really let down by the government. They don't trust the government. And I feel people are entitled to have a government that they can trust and that they can have confidence in. And it kind of dismays me to have a situation where in this country they don't feel that. And that is a very big responsibility on government and above all on Keir Starmer. So I think it also is obviously massively disappointing for all those Labour councillors who've been doing a good job locally. And often people will say on the doorstep, you know, I like you, I like what you've done, thank you for what you've done, but I'm not voting for you anymore because I'm really cross with the government and I'm going to teach them a lesson. So I think all those councillors who've lost their seats, you know, it's very dismaying for them and very undermining as well for the Labour MPs in those areas because councillors are very much part of the team, you know, as are their wives and husbands and their rest of their friends and family. They're part of the backbone of the Labour Party. But also it's just made Keir Starmer's job as Prime Minister more difficult because really most of the things that you have to do in government, like house building, like, you know, green energy, like transport, like sorting out high streets, they're not done just from Westminster. They're done by the government in partnership with councils. So actually the government will have to forge new partnerships with these green councils and with the reform councils. And actually there's always been a good partnership between Labour in government and Labour councils, Tory in government and Tory councils. But also, if Tories in government, often Labour councils would have very good working partnerships with them and vice versa. So this is a kind of new challenge. Are the reform people going to be serious councillors trying to deliver for local people? And will they work with integrity in partnership with the government who's elected to deliver for high streets, for job creation, for transport, for housing? You know, that we haven't seen any sign of that seriousness and commitment from reform so far. So it's just made Keir Starmer's difficult job even more difficult. But my goodness me, you know, he said he's not going to stand down, but he's certainly got to step up and lead that rebuilding of confidence, because when people are struggling, which they clearly are, they blame the establishment, and there's nothing more establishment than the Prime Minister.
I mean, it's interesting because to answer Sophie's question and pick up on what you said, Ruth, that, you know, Reform's strapline for these elections was vote Reform, get Starmer out. For a set of local elections and Welsh parliamentary elections and Scottish parliamentary elections, vote Reform, get Starmer out. I mean, you couldn't get more of a national message. And actually, I just interviewed Farage, and I sort of asked him, I said, has Starmer been your greatest asset in these elections? And what I was getting at is exactly what you just said, Harriet, that actually such is the disillusionment and unhappiness with both the previous Conservative government that has now flipped to the Labour government, that actually people are voting in a way where they just, you know, they're giving a verdict on the incumbent parties. And he said, yeah, ironically, Keir Starmer is my greatest asset as Nigel Farage. And I think that where actually these elections for me have felt slightly different to normal, because normally in local election campaigns, you do go and ask the leaders about what they're campaigning on and what their local agenda is and what they want to do in councils and how they want to run local government and what can they offer the public. And really, this felt for me very much like a debate that was in the national arena about what the current state of our politics were.
One of the really interesting sort of extrapolations that happened in this was that if you look at where Labour lost its votes, they went down about 10% in the affluent areas, but they went down about 40% in the most deprived areas. That's 40, not 14%, 40%. Almost half of Labour voters in the most deprived areas of England no longer voted for them. They took their vote elsewhere. They took it to Farage. And I think that hits exactly on what Harriet was saying, which is that people are disillusioned. They don't think their life is getting better. You know, this cost of living crisis has been going on for the best part of a bloody decade. They've got no money in their pocket. It seems to be getting worse. Their high street looks crap. They think that the country's going backwards. They were promised change 2 years ago at the general election. It's not come, or it's not come quickly enough. And why wouldn't you vote for a party that says it's going to blow everything up? So it is that kind of voting of hopelessness. And the Tories, we haven't really talked about them yet. This hasn't been a good election for them. It's not been as bad as it might have been, and that seems to have covered over the cracks in some of the commentary. But this was a vote, not just for Farage and Polanski, but it was a vote against Labour and the Tories, because there is no trust there. There is no belief there. And neither of the two parties at the moment are kind of selling hope. And we have to get onto it, and we have to sell delivery as well.
But I do wonder whether or not the reason why Farage has focused on Starmer, vote reform to get Starmer out, is because if he were to succeed, and obviously Keir Starmer is not going to stand down, and perhaps we'll discuss that in a bit. But if he were to succeed and Keir Starmer was ousted from the prime ministership and somebody else came in, then as sure as eggs is eggs, what would happen is that Farage would come forward and say, but actually, I won the last election. I've got more votes than anybody else. I should be being prime minister. We should have a general election. This person, nobody asked you who this next person is in Downing Street. It's an elite stitch up. And actually, therefore, let's have a general election now. And that would create real instability. And rather than it actually building confidence of people in government and in the Prime Minister, and people need to feel they can have confidence in their government and the Prime Minister, it would actually have the reverse outcome.
And look, on this matter of kind of how local politics do play out on the national stage, Sky News does a projection where they take local election results and they do what's called a national equivalent vote share. And they basically say, if you took these results and you extrapolate it out to a general election, and this was repeated in a general election with all the caveats that you have of people vote differently in general, people vote differently in local elections to general. But if you did extrapolate it out, the result would be that Reform would become the largest party in Parliament.
Now, I got quite excited because it had Reform at 27%, the Tories at 20%, Labour down at 15%, and the Greens at 14%, the same as the Lib Dems. And for me, I was getting excited because if the Tories are in the top two, then you might get that kind of that tactical vote against Reform. And then, Beth, you're going to burst my bubble because it also has what the projected seats would be.
And I am going to burst your bubble, Ruth, here, because on the House of Commons projection, if you extrapolate that out, Reform are the largest party with 284 seats. Labour would come in at 110 and the Conservatives would come in at 96. The Lib Dems at 80, SNP 36, Green 13, Plaid 13, right? So Nigel Farage would have the largest party. He could try to form a government. I think the issue is he would be 42 seats short of a majority on this. And so he'd have to find someone to either help prop up that government. It's going to be hard to run a minority government if you're 42 seats short. And when I asked him in this interview tonight, would you ever do a deal with the Conservatives? He simply said no. But I think that is, in black and white, okay, it's a projection, but it gives you a sense of the idea that Nigel Farage really could win the next general election based on the performance of the performance of his party in these elections.
If the Tories get 96 seats at the 2029 general election, I will eat my flip-flops on camera for electoral dysfunction audience.
I'd enjoy that. Make sure they're magenta. But look, that is all from us today. We're going to be back on Friday, unless, of course, something huge happens. You can never say never, but do watch out for a Keir Starmer speech coming your way on Monday, we think.
Do make sure to send us all of your thoughts and questions. We love hearing from you, and the number to get in touch is 07934 200 444, or you can email us at electoraldysfunction@sky.uk.
Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.